Hi. Whoops. So first off, hi, and welcome to this fanfic reading. This is a Shinso ex-villain listener, so just a little bit of background information. The listener is an American villain who is transferring to UA in order to become a hero. It was kind of like a reformation project. So it's like turning a villain to a hero. So they're fluent in Japanese, but they still forget a few words occasionally, so that's like why they stutter sometimes. So their quirk allows them to see other people's quirks, for example, like what it's called and how they activate it. They can also steal somebody else's quirk, but it's only for like a short period of time. Sorry, I know this intro is like a little bit long, but I hope you enjoy. Side note, I would like to apologize for my awful voice acting. I've never been known to be good at that. To be fair, I'm good at female voices, but not so much males. I'm dragging this out. Again, enjoy the video. The Reform Project. The project designed by UA, the police force, and several assisting pro-heroes. This project is designed to be put in place in the event of a villain within the age range of 14 to 18 to be reformed in terms of learning how to become a hero at UA. The student will be placed in Class 1A regardless of age and will live out their life as a UA student. If this student does not change its ways by the end of third year, then they will face the amount of jail time originally intended for them. The projection of Nezu explaining this project ended. Aizawa turned on the lights, faced his students to explain in better terms what was going on and why. Soon this project will go into effect with its first student, Listener. They are an American villain who was brought here as a suggestion for the project. They will be carefully monitored by us teachers, and we will expect all of you to do the same. They will be staying at the dorms, but will have very strict rules of where they must be at certain times, Aizawa explained. Any questions? He added. Several people raised their hands. He sighed. This was much more work than he wanted for today. Ida, you can go first, Aizawa said, knowing his questions would be the easiest to answer. Why are they putting a villain in a hero course? Especially one of the best classes in UA, Ida asked. It's meant to give them hope that they can reform into heroes. While it is unlikely they'll receive a hero license in the end, its hope is that their way of thinking can be changed. Additionally, this class has had the most experience with villains, so if anything were to go wrong, then you would be the most reliable in stopping it, Aizawa replied, reading off a paper with the specific information he could tell. Thank you. Ida bowed and sat back down. So they're just turning school into an actual prison? Denki muttered to himself. Yaya Rozu also had a question. Aizawa said, looking to the back of the room. You said this new student was from America, correct? Do you know if they are able to speak Japanese? Momo asked. From what I've been told, they were suggested because of their fluency in Japanese. Whether this is true or not, I can't be sure. But at the very least, they will be able to speak, Aizawa replied. Denki suddenly raised his hand, causing Aizawa to fill with a bit of concern. Yes, Kaminari? What crimes did they commit? He asked. It's up to them to tell you, but allegedly nothing serious, he said, happy that it wasn't that stupid of a question. Alright, The doors opened, cutting off Aizawa from what he was saying. The student is here now. You better have told your class everything already, Shoto, Midnight said from the doorway. Yes, everyone already knows, Aizawa rolled his eyes. Midnight opened the door more as Cementos brought in the new student. They looked to be around the age of the other 1A students. They had a black collar thing around their neck that had a green light flashing on it. Similar devices were around their ankles and wrists too. They were wearing a school uniform and obviously didn't want to be there. Cementos stopped at their desk and waited for them to sit down. Please continue class, he said, and walked out of the room with Midnight. Everyone had seemed nervous looking at the real villain that was sitting in their class, closer to some than others. I hate this, you mumbled. Time skip. Lunch was very awkward for you, and just about everyone in the school was informed of you being there. Maybe if Cementos and Aizawa weren't standing beside you, then it would be only slightly harder to tell that you were the new student. So, you're the American villain, right? Someone asked. You looked up from your food towards the person who approached you. He wasn't in your class. You could remember that much. He had crazy purple hair and bags under his eyes. Quirk, brainwashing. He can brainwash you if you answer his questions. Your quirk informed you. You stayed silent and went back to eating. You had already ignored most of the people who had approached you, since they normally ask stupid questions. Fine. What did you do to make you a villain? Everyone wants to know, but you haven't talked at all, Shinso said, sitting down across from you. You glanced up at him, still not responding to his question. Fine, I guess not, he said, standing up to leave. I'll answer your questions if you promise not to use that brainwash quirk on me, you said, pausing for a second to figure out the word. Alright, I won't, he said, sitting back down. Aizawa quirked an eyebrow at the two of you, but didn't say anything since you didn't seem to be doing anything much wrong. Some other people glanced over, seeing that you were actually talking to someone. Shinso, out of everyone. Is being an American villain really that interesting? I don't think I was even one or the worst of them, and somehow I ended up here. What did you do that wasn't so bad, as you call it? He said. Okay, there's gangs here, right? Oh, what am I saying? There's gangs everywhere. Yeah, so I was in one of those. I was what's the word? Drug smuggler. Yeah, and I got caught one day. So, now I'm here, you explained. A drug smuggler at 15. You Americans are weird, he shook his head. It was more believable when I was 9, but I guess I seemed like a good kid. So, no one suspected much, really, he said. How'd you get caught? He asked. It's at the tip of my tongue, but I still don't know the word. No, wait, that's not right. Why don't I know this? You rambled, trying to figure out the word. He looked at you a bit confused. He understood some of what you were saying, but you seemed to be confused with the word. Need any help? He asked, smirking. Snitch. Yeah, that's it. There was a traitor, and then the police came and raided the whole hideout. Most of the people got out, but I got caught, so yeah, you said. Okay, Shinso, I think you've asked enough questions. Go somewhere else and eat your lunch, Aizawa suddenly said. Nice talk, listener, he said, getting his tray and standing up. You weren't used to being called by your last name. See you around, he said, going back to eating your food. You have 10 minutes, Aizawa said. I actually think it's 15, though. You replied, glancing towards the clock. You dropped your bowl onto the table as a large surge of electricity went through your body from the collar things on you. It hurt like hell, especially since you were trying to eat. Fuck! You cursed loud enough to get some people's attention. No talking back, you have 5 minutes now, he said. They didn't tell me that this thing could electrocute me. All they said is it could temporarily paralyze me if I exit school grounds, you muttered, seeing your hand shaking from the electric shock. Isn't that a bit cruel? Shinso thought, after he had watched you get electrocuted. Another time skip. Shinso sighed as he changed his shoes at his locker. Today had felt like another waste. Hey Shinso, how was your day? You asked, walking up to him. He hadn't actually introduced himself earlier, so you assumed that Shinso was the name you could call him. Are you allowed to walk around school after hours? He asked. I thought they explained everything to you. Well, I guess it's not that important since I can't leave the school grounds anyways. I have about 3 hours to do whatever I want. I think I have to be in my dorm the rest of the night until dinner, though, you explained. Can you go to other dorms? Maybe. They never said anything against it, so it's possible, you shrugged. Come to my dorm tomorrow after school and we'll see if it works, he said, walking off. You blushed as he walked off to his dorm. I've only been here a day? What? You said, confused. The next day after school, you met Shinso in front of his class dorm building. You hadn't even asked Aizawa if you were allowed to be in other students' dorm rooms, but he seemed to be in a more irritated mood today, so you stayed out of his way. Now that you were standing with the crazy purple-haired boy, you knew you were going to find out the hard way. Knowing the school's current safety precautions, you wouldn't be surprised if they managed to set the boundary tracker to where it went off whenever you went into a dorm room other than your own. I didn't think you'd actually come, Shinso said. Well, I wouldn't want to ditch one of my only friends. He smiled. A faint blush tinted his cheeks, and he smiled slightly at your words. He immediately regained his composure, knowing that this was wrong. You were a villain, even admitting that you were a drug smuggler. It's wrong, he believed. It was wrong as a hero to be happy about being called a villain's friend. Not only that, but he'd known you for 2 days now. Come on, my dorm's on the 2nd floor. I'll take you there, he said, returning to having a straight face. He walked into the dorm building, and you followed after him. You were tense every second you were in there for several reasons, the main issue being that you were waiting for the location trackers to go off, and when they did, you'd be paralyzed until the teachers came to disable it. Another reason was the oddly large amount of general education students glaring at you when you walked into their dorms. Every department of UA was informed of your arrival as a villain. They all knew who you were and were equally angry or terrified of the villain in their dorm rooms. Shinso, what are you doing bringing them in here? Someone finally pointed out. I don't get the big deal. Have you all seen the safety measures? Besides, there's still a teacher in this building who has control over that caller. You guys really have nothing to worry about. Shinso rolled his eyes as you continued to follow him to his dorm. You didn't have to say that, you know. It's what the teachers want, for them to be afraid of me. It keeps them aware, and if I were to do anything, you know, he said, nervously rubbing the tracker bracelets. I know you aren't going to attack anyone. Why would you? It's stupid anyways. It's basically being handed freedom and then just throwing it away. And you aren't even from here, so what would you do if you escaped? Just a thought, Shinso said, not looking back at you as he stepped in front of a door. You noticed that about him. He's pretty harsh but truthful about what he says to people. But that was all you'd seen of him. Maybe he was different. He opened the door to his room and he stopped, and gestured for you to go in. You were a bit uncertain at first. Similar scenarios have occurred to you before, and they didn't really end well, but, you know, whatever. This is your room? You asked, looking around. It's not much, but yeah, he said, closing the door behind him. It's better than my room. You even have a TV. The most I got was a bed, a desk, and a chair. I mean, that's understandable though, considering I'm basically in prison. He laughed, looking around his room. You can sit wherever. What do you want to watch? He asked. He sat down on his bed and turned on the small TV. You awkwardly sat down next to him on his bed. He rested his arm on your shoulder, causing you to glare at him. You didn't do anything to stop him, really. Hey, it's iCarly, you said, pointing to one of the American programs on the TV show. iCarly? He questioned. Yeah, I watched it practically all the time when I was a kid. The gang normally let me use the TV whenever I was involved with a successful trip. But we could watch something else. I mean, subtitles ruin it anyways, you said. Shinso chose it anyways. There weren't any subtitles on it either. But he enjoyed seeing it fill you with joy as you watched the characters say something and then a laugh track playing. So, listener, how did you get involved with the gang? Were you born into it? Joined it? Why were you there? He wondered. Well, I was sort of adopted into it, I guess. One of the members of the gang who was a bodyguard was a family friend. My parents were villains, at least from what I was told. They gave me to him so that way he would watch me for the night, but they were both caught by a pro hero, so I lived and grew up with the gang. And now I'm here, so I guess that's about it, you explained. Shinso sighed. You're a villain. I shouldn't feel sorry for you, but I do. I'm sorry that you had to experience something like that. Oh, it's fine, Shinso. I can't miss someone I don't really know, right? I found out all of this from a family friend. So he took care of me until the gang got, busted, you said. Hey, I have a few American movies. Do you want to watch one, he asked, trying to change the subject now. American movies? Seriously? I mean, sure, why not? You replied, shaking your head. Time skip? Listener, I have to turn on the location trackers if you don't return within 30 minutes. Shinso woke up to a slightly distorted version of Aizawa's voice. He groaned, hearing his neck pop as he moved it to the side. He tried to stretch his body more, only to feel a pressure on his shoulder. Looking over, he saw you sitting next to him with your head on his shoulder. The TV was playing the end credits to the movie you two had been watching earlier. I guess we fell asleep, he noticed, looking outside to see it was dark. You were meant to be back in your dorm about 10 minutes after the sun fully set. A small blue light shined from the GPS bracelet on your left wrist. He looked over at it, wondering why it was suddenly blue. His curiosity was met when Aizawa's voice was once heard again, coming from the bracelet. "Kid, being quiet isn't going to help you," he said. Shinso gently picked up her arm to look at the bracelet. He tried to look for any indicator, preferably a button, that could help him respond. You seemed to be sleeping so peacefully he didn't want to wake you. "There it is," he mumbled, finding a black button on the side of the bracelet. "Listener, you've been taking classes for 2 days. You should have a good excuse for this one," Aizawa said, clearly seeing that you were going to respond. "Hey, Aizawa-sensei," Shinso replied. There were a few seconds of silence. "Hitoshi, let listener respond on their own." "I can't. They're asleep," he said. "I don't want to know what the two of you are doing, but Shinso, you know you aren't allowed to be engaging in those kinds of activities with listener, much less at your age," Aizawa said. I wasn't informed that it was against the rules to watch movies with them, much less at my age." "I'll bring them over there now," Shinso said, going to pick you up. There was no response from Aizawa, so Shinso continued with picking you up. They must be a heavy sleeper if they're still sleeping through all of this," Shinso thought, carrying you out of his room. At this time, there was no one else around outside of the dorms. The people on the couch didn't even bother looking at Shinso as he passed by them. Your body was partially draped over his shoulder, so it was easier for him to open some doors. Once he made it outside, he shifted to carrying you bridal style. The dorms are pretty far apart. Maybe I should wake them up, Shinso thought. He didn't think you were particularly heavy, he just didn't want to walk that far. What? You began mumbling, waking up. "Go back to sleep, listener," he replied, holding you closer to him. "Alright," you trailed off, slipping back into sleep. "Great," he sighed, continuing to walk to the 1A dorms. Once he got close enough, he saw the disheveled teacher and pro hero he was standing outside. "Shinso, don't let this happen again," Aizawa said immediately when he saw the general education student. "I don't see what's wrong. They're a perfectly normal person. You know that too. You can't just let any villain under 18 into hero school," Shinso said, going to hand you to the teacher. "Yes, they're not a bad kid, but that doesn't make up for the actions that they've done. They were here for a week before starting classes with everyone. They have a chance from what we've seen. Take them to their room. I'm going to sleep," Aizawa said, walking off. "Great, just great," Shinso sighed, not knowing what to do. "Hey, thanks for that," you suddenly said, managing to stand up on your own. He blushed in embarrassment, clearly. "You were awake?" "Of course, I can't just fall asleep like that," you said, snapping your fingers when you said that. "I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks again. By the way," you said, walking towards the dorms. Yeah, of course," he said, quietly going back to his dorm with a small smile on his face. Yay! Okay, I just wanted to say hi. Welcome to the end of the video. Congratulations, you made it. I'm really sorry. I know this is kind of weird. It's weird to me in a way, especially since I'm new at this. But if you want to leave requests, just delete the link of the fanfiction down below. Please keep it around 10 minutes and safe for work. I think that's about it. I really hope you enjoyed though, because this one was like extra complicated because it actually got messed up when I was editing it, and it was like so annoying to fix, especially since this is a longer fanfic. I do plan on eventually writing my own, but I tried writing one and I hated it as soon as I started reading it out loud. But reading it in my head, it was great. Out loud, not so much, because I change how I write and how I speak. Basically, it's just very different. Yeah. Alright, bye!